I'm going to be sharing some of the insights that I gained at a recent conference I attended in prison. So the information I'm going to be sharing with you is from what I gained from the various presentations that I attended. My presentation focused on what was the experience of children like in South Africa during apartheid South Africa. And when I presented and I listened to presentations coming through from Palestinian experiences, it was as though we were talking from the same book. And at the end, when people looked at comparatives, it was as though apartheid South Africa and Israel actually wrote their torture strategies at the same time. The plight of Palestinian children, who make up close to 50% of the population, is increasingly becoming a cause for international concern and outcry. Israel has more than 666 racist laws that they use steadily to destroy the souls of Palestinian children. There has been an increase in the number of children held in detention over the past 5 years. According to the United Nations, the number of Palestinian children detained by Israeli authorities following arrest reached 946 in 2015. In 2016, 313 Palestinian minors were held in Israeli prisoners as security detainees, including 10 administrative detainees. From the testimony of children, which you'll see later on in the documentary and from the slides that are up, it is very clear that the treatment of Palestinian children is in a clear violation of a variety of international laws. Palestinian children are subjected to the same arrests, interrogation, trials, and imprisonment procedures as adults. In 2015, Israel further extended its control by elevating the penalty for rock throwing from 10 years to 20 years and issuing another law which allows Israeli courts to prosecute children under the age of 14. Laws are also applied very differently for Palestinian children and Israeli children. Children are also subjected to what is called membership offenses. And almost everybody here this evening would be arrested according to a membership offense. This is if you attend an event, even if you serve coffee, to an organization or a person that Israel considers a threat. So a membership offense is another excuse that they use to arrest children. More recently, children have also been arrested for Facebook posts. Children are mostly arrested between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. The IDF enters the house, most times knowing exactly in which room and exactly where the child is sleeping. Children are woken up with a gun to their faces. They are not allowed to change their clothing. They are not allowed to put on shoes, and these are even in the cold winter months. Their parents are not provided with any reasons for the arrest, and they are often threatened with arrest themselves. The torture starts from the point when the soldiers enter the home and continues therefrom. Children's hands are tied behind their backs with cable ties. They are blindfolded, and if they complain, these cable ties are tightened. The torture continues in military vehicles, which transports them to so-called detention centers. Inside the military jeep, which has no cameras, children are stepped on and crushed under the metal boots of soldiers. They are also beaten with barbed wire and batons. Any screams or tears invites further torture. The intent is to deliver the children to a destination devoid of dignity and worth. Children are sometimes first taken to settlements, and at these settlements they put out in a public area where settler children taunt, laugh, and push them around. By the time they arrive at detention centers for the official interrogation, they are tired, they are hungry, and they are denied any access to ablution facilities. Further torture continues at times in bathrooms. And why bathrooms? Because there are no cameras in bathrooms. Children are subjected to verbal abuse, strip searched, and denied food and water. There have also been reports of sexual abuse. These interrogations continue until late at night, even though it's illegal for them to continue after 8 p.m. Children have no parent present during the interrogation and no access to legal counsel and social workers. They are not informed of the reason for their arrest and the detention or for their rights, particularly the right to silence and the right to a lawyer, is not known. In most cases, the reported crime is stone throwing with no hard evidence. When lawyers are allowed to access children, they have to communicate through a glass barrier, as there are concerns that cell phones may be passed on to children. The Red Cross, who are allowed to have access to children, have signed a confidentiality clause, so they are unable to report on atrocities. There's also been an increase in the number of children held under administrative detention, that is, arrest without trial. Almost 2/3 of Palestinian child detainees are transferred from occupied territory where they live to prisons inside Israel. This is a particular hardship for parents because in most cases they're unable to get the correct documents to be able to visit their children, and it's an expense. It is also a violation of the 4th Geneva Convention. When in prison, children have limited access to education, play, and stimulation. The occupation also imposes house arrests on children, which is the imprisonment within their homes. This turns parents into jailers because they are given the responsibility to act as guardians. During this time, children are deprived from the simplest things like education, movement, play, and socializing. The severe mental, emotional, and physical implications of detention are often underestimated, leading detainees, especially children, to believe that an outcry for help after detention is shameful and a sign of either personal weakness or a lack of solidarity with the Palestinian cause. Hence, it can be emotionally very confusing for a child to seek help and support after detention. Unfortunately, many children become normalized to the beatings and to the torture, and their childhood and innocence continues to be stolen by Israel. The conference concluded with the following decisions and recommendations: to launch a campaign of international advocacy to support the rights of children, aiming at putting pressure on the state of the occupation in order to comply with international obligations in the occupied territories, and to show its commitment towards the rights of child detainees according to the rules and provisions of international humanitarian law. Highlight the need for prosecuting occupation intelligence officers for exercising physical and psychological torture against detained children, as this is considered a war crime, according to the international criminal law that leads to criminal liability based on Article 147 of the 4th Geneva Convention. Confirm that international institutions, including the United Nations organizations, UNICEF, the International Red Cross, and all countries that signed the Convention on the Rights of the Child should take responsibility for international, legal, and ethical commitments, as well as taking measures to hold the occupation accountable for the violation of agreements signed and imposing sanctions on the state of occupation for not fulfilling its obligations in accordance with the signed treaties. To raise the coordination and integration between national and international institutions in projects and rehabilitation programs for free children in order to reduce the psychological effects of detention, interrogation, and torture. Emphasize the enhancing role of Palestinian embassies in granting the cause of Palestinian detainees, especially children, high enough importance in meetings and international conferences. A call for the General Assembly of the United Nations to form an international fact-finding committee on the abusive and degrading treatment of children detainees and Israel's violation of their basic rights. A generation of children are being destroyed in interrogation rooms. We need to protect their childhood, and we need to defend their rights. How do Israelis live in peace? How are they so self-content with what is happening? How can a people who claim to love their children not see the wrong that they are doing? Thank you.